Hey YouTubers, it's me, Mustin07, coming at you once again through the power of OBS Recording Studios, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the spin tool in Blender. Basically, the spin tool allows us to take an object and make a bunch of copies of that object in a circle, and it's really helpful for a lot of things, including perhaps the bolts on a steam locomotive boiler, which is what we're going to do for this tutorial. So we want to go to add, and then we want to add a mesh, so click mesh, and then click cylinder. Now that we've added the cylinder, we can now change the number of vertices, which is really important. I have a video on vertices in Blender, but basically you can change this to however many number of vertices you want. But in my case, I'm going to set it to 6 vertices because I want it to have a hexagonal shape. In my case, I'm also going to want to scale this because I want it to look like a bolt, and this is just a little bit too big for what it's supposed to do. Once you've gotten your shape to the right scale and everything, you can now use the spin tool. Make sure that your shape is selected as mine is, then go from object mode to edit mode. You should see a whole list of stuff on the left side, and just scroll down a bit and you should see the spin tool. Click it, zoom out if you have to, and you'll see a curved line with blue balls with plus signs. Also click that and you'll then see a bunch of copies of your original shape all arranged in a circle. When you're at this point, there's many things you can do. One of the things you can do is change the number of steps, which is basically the number of the copies of the shape that are arranged in a circle. As you can probably see though, all of these bolts they're in a circle, but they're not in the right place, so it looks quite silly because they should be on the boiler. So go into the pop-up menu here, and you can change the axis numbers anywhere from -1 to 1. Now we've gotten the bolts in the correct orientation, but they're still not in the same place, so they still look kind of silly. To move them to the right place, we want to click the arrow that is horizontal and we want to drag it. I recommend zooming in and just looking real close just to make sure that it is aligned correctly. When you have confirmed that it is aligned correctly, I recommend that you look over it one more time to make sure it is how you want it to be. And in my case, I'm gonna add a couple extra steps to it because I think it'll look better if the bolts are all closer together. It'll look a bit more correct to the real-life O-class steam locomotive. Once you're back in object mode, you'll notice that all the bolts are considered one unit, even though they look like separate pieces. That is because that is what the spin tool does. And now you all don't have to do this step, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stagger the bolts. To do that, I'm going to select them, then I'm going to copy them. Then I'll rotate them to get the correct orientation. Then I drag them over just a little bit, so that way when you look at it from this view, it's between the two existing bolts. And you may have to rotate it some more to get it to the correct orientation. Finally, you can just drag those bolts out a tiny bit so that way you can make it look staggered. Then, shift and select both of those sets of bolts. Now you can Control C and Control V and drag them out. Another thing you can do to make it easier to reference the blueprint is you can hide the boiler so that way you can see where the bolts go on the blueprint, and so that way you can put them there and then unhide the boiler when you're done. And there we have it. We have bolts on the boiler of the steam locomotive, and we also learned how to use the spin tool in Blender. But that just about does it for this video. I hope you learned something. As always, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more videos, and goodbye.